Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. If you haven't already, please be sure to check out our website, countrymusicmademe.com. There you can listen to all of our episodes and also sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on all of our upcoming guests and also receive exclusive content like an acoustic performance from today's guest, Sarahbeth Taite. Just head over to countrymusicmademe.com and hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on any streaming platform, so if streaming is your thing, just head over to your favorite, search Country Music Made Me, and give us a follow there as well. On today's episode, we are excited to welcome singer-songwriter Sarahbeth Taite. Now, her journey in Nashville began at the age of 14 when she asked her parents for a trip to Music City for her birthday to attend a songwriter's workshop. Now that turned into a publishing deal, and over high school, she traveled back and forth before making the official move at the age of 17. Now things really exploded in 2020 with the release of her single Long Way, and she is getting set to release her new EP For My Own Good in June. So please enjoy our conversation with Sarahbeth Taite.
It's definitely been a much longer journey than just, the TikTok thing that I think some fans and followers might just be like, oh yeah, we hopped on and started following you after Long Way came out and that's what we know. And it's so funny that there's just been so much before that has happened. So
yeah, exactly. And I want to go back to 3 years old, when I believe your love of music formed, and now hopping on the piano with your grandma. Before you talk about that experience and what that meant for your love of music now, tell me about your grandma and the person she was and what she meant to you and how she inspired you, not only musically, but as a person in general along your journey.
Yeah, she just was always, it's interesting. She's nobody in my family really was like a vocalist or a songwriter or any of that, but there was just my grandma was kind of that one sitting at the piano, just always bringing music into the house. And so she would come over and just sit at the piano and just play for hours, and it was just always filling the room. And so what was so special was just kind of watching her, and she had all these old school songs that she loved to play. And it just kind of made me go, okay, I think, when you're that little, I think a lot of people just start maybe doing piano lessons. Maybe their parents made them or something, but it was just so fun to be able to kind of hop up there with her. I think I probably felt like I was cool, trying to learn something. And so I think my parents walked in one day and saw me setting her sheet music up, but it was like upside down. And so the sheet music's like upside down, and I'm like pretending to read it, and they're like, I think we should get her lessons. So it was a really special, I think it helped me bond with her a little bit too. I mean, it was just a fun thing to be able to hear her and kind of emulate that when I was little. And it was just really special looking back to see those pictures of where I'm like hopping up next to her. So,
and I saw you mention your grandpa Willie, who served in the military. Now, is he someone that you had a chance to know as well throughout your journey?
Yes. He actually just recently passed away last year. And he and my grandma were separated. So she was the one who played piano. Those are my mom's parents. And he served, and my brother ended up enlisting. I guess that was 2020. I'm getting my years mixed up now after 2020 to 2021. But
exactly.
Anyways, my brother ended up enlisting, I think last year, and he's National Guard now in Colorado. We've got a little bit of the military thing going on, and my whole family's just, honestly, I've had great relationships. They're all just so supportive and sweet, and we're all super close. So.
And with your brother enlisting, I saw him mention how impactful your journey has been on him and you chasing your dreams. But for you as well, his journey of being someone who steps in to help protect the country. How do you sort of inspire each other within this journey, do you think?
Yeah, that was really sweet. I know he and I talked about that a lot during that time that he started that, because I've been kind of on this journey in a sort of my whole life, but in a way really started seriously when I was about 14. And obviously he and I are really close. We're 14 months apart. And we've always been close in age and just close in general. And he's just watched, this whole journey of mine from the time we were kids in school, and I was
Right.
leaving school to come to Nashville. And he's just kind of watched that almost our whole life together. And it was really special because I think he does look up to that in a way. And I really looked up to him chasing his dream too, because he's wanted to enlist in the military since, gosh, I think I remember him telling us that maybe when he was 15. So the both of us kind of just had these like really, really strong like convictions early on in our lives. And it's just the two of us in our family, there's just four of us, my brother and I, my mom and dad. So
Right.
it's been really special for us both to kind of cheer each other on and just admire each other, because we've gotten to see a few of those dreams come true. So it's been really cool.
And tell me about your parents and the type of people they are to raise two kids who have this drive within them to just chase their dreams no matter what.
They are amazing. I don't know what I'm like. What did you like put in our Cheerios when we were little? Like what my brother and I were like, we're gonna do this and this. They're the best parents ever. Again, just incredibly supportive. We were never really pushed into anything. Like I was never pushed into music. Like I said, my parents, nobody in my family was like songwriter, vocalist, musical. And we, like I said, my grandpa Willie was in the military, but it's not like my parents never pushed either of these things onto us. It was one of those things where I think they just encouraged, once we kind of spoke up about things that we wanted. I just think that there was this sense of like, yes, you can do that. Like if you set your mind to this and you put work into this, you can do that. And so I think that we both just kind of grew up thinking that anything that we wanted to be, as long as we worked really hard, we could have that. And so that's probably how I ended up, moving to Nashville at 17. Like it's like a little bit crazy, right? I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
anybody thinking that they can make it in the music industry, we're all a little bit crazy. But at the same time, if you never really believe that you can do something, you're probably never going to do that thing. And so I just think we had a really great support system all the time. And also just letting us know too that it was okay to not do this. I mean, it was always just like, we're here, we're supportive just because you want to do it. And anything I would have picked, they would have been just as supportive of. So
Wow. And the songwriting, I think I saw kind of blossomed for you in middle school, but I think
yeah,
I also read that there was a song when you were 6. Now, were
yeah.
you writing back then at the age of 6?
There it is framed in my parents' house. And like this has ended up in like every bio that I've ever had. I'm like, I don't know how we are like considering this a song.
Right.
It is a poem, and there was a melody to it. So it is a song. It doesn't really make a whole ton of sense, but it is framed in my parents' guest bathroom. And yeah, it was a real song. And you know what? My brother was in karate lessons. I remember this actually very distinctly. My brother was in karate lessons and I was not, and I was like bummed about not being able to like do karate in the boys class.
Oh, okay.
And I was sitting out in my little like purple journal, like just like writing things. So there you go. I don't remember exactly the melody, but I know that I was singing something with it. So
That's hilarious. And so at the age of 6, when you were writing that poem song, was it more of a poem, or did you already have that musicality within you that was sort of thinking within the songwriting mindset?
I mean, who knows what I was actually thinking, but I
Right.
do, like I said, I mean, I do remember like there were melodies. I mean, there was like, again, very elementary, terrible, whatever. But there must have been something that I saw, in artists out in the world and people just on the radio and whatever. There must have just been something in me kind of going, oh, people are doing this and I'm going to do this. And so that could have started and ended there. But as just, my love of music grew as I got older, I think it just kind of started being something where it was like, oh no, wait, like people do this as a career and, maybe I can get better and do this, for my life. And it's funny because I look back at even the songs when I was 14, I'm like, what was happening? Like, why did anyone let me like share these songs ever? But everybody starts somewhere. And I think that, even if it's elementary at the time, it's like you said, it's the fact that you're kind of putting these things together. You're putting the words and the melodies together.
Yeah.
And at some point, if something's clicking, like eventually as that grows and you learn from other songwriters and you learn from the music that you listen to, as you kind of grow and develop, like eventually something kind of clicks with those things and the music starts getting better. And then you get like one halfway decent song and you're like, that was like kind of good. Maybe I could do like another,
Right.
and I think, and then especially when other people start recognizing that in you too, then you just kind of like get this fire going.
Right. Yeah. And now one of the turning points was when your piano teacher loaned you a guitar or gave you a guitar, however that worked, and you started
Yeah.
playing that. Now, before that, when you were playing the piano, is that what sparked your love of music, or was it more just like country music that you were listening to and then jumping on the guitar when you really got that feeling that made you want to dive more into music?
Yeah, I always say that guitar moment was kind of pivotal back in middle school SBT phase, because the piano, obviously I started when I was little, to take lessons all through school, and a lot of the lessons that I took were much more formal,
Oh,
which
okay.
I'm glad, not formal in that I was like super classical, like knew everything that I was doing, but I was, reading the sheet music, playing whatever songs the teacher put in front of me. And I'm grateful that I learned how to read music. That was a great thing that came out of that.
Right.
But I do think that, I kind of got to that age where country music is what I was listening to. So I started diving into country music, like sonically and on the radio, and just diving back with albums and country records. And so when I went to a piano lesson and they weren't letting me play that, it was kind of like, okay, well, I want to do something. I want to do commercial music. And so my life on the piano had not been that way. And so what happened is I had this amazing piano teacher who did start letting me play the fun songs. And so there were songs that I was like, I want to be able to play these. I want to be able to sit in my bedroom and play these. I want to be able to like write. And the main thing is I want to be able to like go portable. Like I want to be able to take this guitar and just go wherever.
Right. Yeah.
And at least on the piano I was on, that wasn't like a keyboard. It's like, I can't do that. I don't want to always be having to sit at this piano and learn songs. And so anyways, my parents were like, we don't know that you're even going to like the guitar. So we don't want to go buy this guitar that you're never going to play. So anyways, they were like, well, maybe if she'll lend you hers for a little while, we can like see if you're into this. And so
Okay.
my piano teacher lent me a guitar, and she taught me, I think maybe one or two chords. And then what happened is like, I had it for about a week. And by the time I gave it back to her, I'd taught myself like, I don't know, 10 chords. And I was like trying to play songs already. And I like didn't even wait for her to teach me anything. I was just like, okay, I've Googled like all these chords and all these songs that I need to know. And, country music is like, they say 3 chords and the truth. It's pretty much like, we need to know 4 chords and then we can kind of elaborate on that. So I learned the main chords and I was like, okay, I don't even know that I need lessons. I'm about to teach myself 24/7 all the time. And so that was kind of where, when I could listen to a country song and try to figure out how to play it and then figure out, oh, these are the chords they use. Maybe I can, figure out a different progression with these chords and write my own melody. I mean, that's where it just really like opened up for me.
And what was the first song you ever learned front to back?
Oh my gosh. I think it was Paramore. It was the You're the Only Exception, I think.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember that song?
I don't remember the title, but I would know it because I know Paramore's stuff if I hear it. But
I think it's called The Only Exception.
Oh, okay.
And it's like a little. It's so funny. I don't even remember like the chorus of the song off the top of my head, but I remember sitting and learning the chords for that song.
That's funny that it wasn't a country song. Your first song.
Wasn't. I know. It was popular at the time, and it was there was some type of like, I don't know, it was like a really simple like strumming pattern and stuff. And I just remember I heard it. It was like just everywhere at the time. And I was like, I think that sounds like I could play that on guitar. So I'm looking it up, trying to figure it out. So
that's hilarious. And so what age was that when you first picked up the guitar?
I think that was I was probably 12 or 13.
Okay.
I think I was probably about 12. I'm trying to remember like grades and age now. Like I'm so far out of school. I'm like, how old was I in the 6th grade or whatever?
Right.
But no, I was probably about 12 when that all started happening.
How quickly did it escalate then that at 14 you go to your parents and you say, for my birthday, I want to go to Nashville because there's a songwriting conference that I want to attend? Like at the age of 14, you're already thinking like that. So within those 2-ish years of learning the guitar and starting to dive into it, like where were your emotions going at that point within music?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, I guess I just kind of had that personality where I was, well, one, I had kind of an intense personality once I set my mind to something, but also like I'm a little type A with stuff like that. But also, I was like 12, 13, 14. I was also just like, naive and crazy.
Right.
But I knew I had figured out, I spent a couple years really diving way back into country music. So I was going like way classic country music, like Loretta and Tammy, and just country music history was like, I was like listening to Kitty Wells at one point, like just all the way back. And I had just learned enough about, just through Googling about country music and songwriters and all this, I just knew that Nashville was where you had to be.
Right.
And so the more that I looked into Nashville, I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do what am I going to do? Just like ask my parents to go there and just show up and like sit in a hotel room in Nashville. So I knew enough to know that I needed to figure out some type of a starting point. And NSAI was that starting point for me because they have so many resources for people who are just getting to Nashville, learning about this industry, and also, people who have been here forever. I mean, we can all learn something. And so they had a songposium going on where, you could just kind of take different classes day by day. And they had a week going on, and it was September and it was my birthday month anyway. So I brought it to my parents, like a whole proposal. And I was like, we need to go to Nashville, but this is why. And it's for my birthday. So that's all I want for my birthday. And so, yeah, it honestly escalated pretty quickly from the time that I started diving in to when all of this happened. But again, the publishing deal kind of came out of nowhere anyways. So it was like, I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was starting this whole thing.
And had you ever performed before that trip at 14?
I think I had done like a couple open mic nights in my hometown. I'm from Fort Collins, Colorado. So we don't have the music scene there is getting there's a lot more venues and stuff now than I really had access to at the time. But growing up, there was really only a couple places. We didn't have writers rounds and all that kind of stuff like Nashville does. So
Right.
I played a couple open mic nights in our like old town, Fort Collins. And I think I did like a middle school talent show and, that kind of stuff. But no, I really had not been on a massive stage. I think I did a festival called the Greeley Stampede back home when I was probably 15. And that was one of the bigger stages I'd been on at that point. So I started kind of getting out there and figuring it out. But no, it was kind of like a little bit cart before the horse, like out of nowhere.
And so when you went to Nashville at 14, did you have a mindset of wanting to be an artist, or were you more focused on being a songwriter because that's sort of what you knew from doing your research and that's maybe how you were going to make a career in Nashville?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to be the singer of the songs. I also knew that I wanted to write them, but I definitely always had that artist mentality coming here. And it's so funny because I barely knew what a publishing deal was, but I knew that was a starting point for me. And so I remember being on the plane out here going, I'm going to like just go out there and get a publishing deal. And it's like, that's what happened. But it's like so funny because I think that probably one of the only reasons that happened is because I was so naive that I just like thought that could happen. So yeah, I mean, I always kind of saw songwriting and singing and my artistry as a package deal.
So at 14, you talk about being naive. So when you're offered a publishing deal, do you remember what was going through your mind? Was it like, I've made it?
Yes.
I've done it.
Oh my gosh.
Like, this is it.
Yes, this is it. I've done it. I'm going to be on the CMAs like next year. Like, it was like, I've done it. And my poor parents were like, what's a publishing deal? And I'm like, you guys, it's fine. Like we're making it. Like, just let me do this.
Right.
I was like, what do you mean you don't know what a publishing deal is? Like, I've been telling you this. So it was hilarious. My dad was trying to read industry books and figure out what I was even talking about. And they were just so supportive. And it really was like, I just thought, oh my gosh, this is the first step. This happened so quickly.
Yeah.
Everything else will just happen like bing, 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 bing. I mean, I thought by the time I was 18, I would be an absolute superstar.
Right.
So, I mean, good positivity, but, a lot learned since then.
Yeah, that's the thing. As you've gone along this journey and starting at 14 and feeling like you're on top of the world, and now 10 years later, and just kind of moving through the paces of being an artist like many people do, is it difficult not to get jaded within this industry and within this career?
Yes. I think, honestly, I think that if I were saying that I wasn't on some level jaded, I'd be lying. It's a really long journey, and it is for even the people that you think it's an overnight success. There is so much that goes on before that. And so, yeah, there's just so many times where you go, what am I even doing? Like, what, am I even on the right path? What if I've spent like my whole life doing this and I'm on the wrong track, And the truth is I think all of us have that to some extent. And it is hard not to go, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for so long. And it's funny because you get all of these little victories that keep you going. And so and I've learned now that one of those victories does not mean that you're going to sit on the mountaintop forever. Like, that's the difference. Is I used to think, oh, if I just get this one thing, then it'll be smooth sailing after that.
Right. Yeah.
And what I've learned now is that I think even once you get, some of the best victories in this industry and you're winning awards and you're having number one, I think that even once you get there, there's dips and there's disappointments and I think it's just always this ebb and flow. And I've gotten just really settled into being okay with that. and enjoying, really just enjoying the music and enjoying what I do. And so many things that I look back, like things that seem like no big deal to me now, I just try to sit and go, oh my gosh, when I was 16, I would have absolutely died to have this opportunity. And that's where the space that I try to live in now is like every little thing is really a victory. And there's always going to be, I'm always going to feel like I need to get to another level.
Yeah.
And I just think we all have that all the time. And so you just have to start enjoying where you're at. And, and then when you level up, it's great.
And so when you look back on a 17-year-old girl jumping in her Chevy Silverado to drive across the country, I think you mentioned it was 20 hours from home to Nashville. When you think about that girl and driving away from home, ready to take this journey, what do you think now that you look back on that?
Oh my gosh. It's so wild. I'm like, oh my gosh, how much she didn't know about everything and how this would all go over the, course of what, 7-8 years since I've lived here. But at the same time, I just like, I'm so glad that at that point when I was doing that drive and coming out here and moving into that little apartment, like, I'm so glad that I had, just the optimism and a little bit of the naive factor there too, because I think that, that's really what gets you here, is just believing that you need to be here. And it's a little bit crazy all the time, but I'm so glad that version of me got here and started this and did that, because I've learned so much. And then you kind of grow from there and learn a lot and maybe get like a little bit jaded, but it's fine. And then, but it's like, I never would have gotten here without a little bit of that, crazy optimism. And yeah, that's how we all end up here to begin with.
And now we talk about family members that have helped get you to where you are, but that Chevy Silverado, I believe you sold it in September of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
It stayed with you for many years. And so tell me about that truck and some of the memories. I think I saw that there was a mailbox that maybe had seen better days after you got done with it.
You know everything about my life. I get so much about that mailbox all the time. My brother will not let the mailbox incident go. I had to bake some muffins for a co-writer of mine because he claims that it was already like going down the chute. I'm like, no, it's because the Silverado like hit the mailbox. Anyway, there was one mailbox casualty, but other than that, it was the best truck in the world. I was an absolute wreck when I sold it. I got to the point where I knew that it wasn't going to last forever. And I needed to sell it just so that I could like get the money from it that it was worth and move on.
Right.
And my husband was with me. We met this couple, the nicest man bought that truck for me. And we met in like a Walmart parking lot. And I thought that I was going to be able to pull it together when I actually handed it over. And I could not. I was crying the whole way there. And I was like, you got to pull it together before you like see these people.
Right.
And I couldn't. I was a wreck. Like that truck had been just through everything with me. And it was so funny. The sweet couple who bought it, they were like, are you okay? Like, are you sure that you want to do this? And I'm like, take it away. Like, it was just, my husband was like, what are you doing? Like, come on.
And so are we ever going to hear a song about it? Are you ever going to write something?
Morgan Wallen did already do the title Silverado, so that one's out of the running. But yeah, we gotta have another truck title here coming up. So
that's hilarious. And now, as far as your performing goes, I think I heard you talk about open mic nights at Puckett's every Thursday. Yes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, I did. Puckett's and Leapers Fork has the coolest mic night, open mic night. I honestly have not been there in years, so I don't know if they're still doing it the same way, but it was an absolute blast every Thursday night. My mom and I, back before I moved here,
Okay.
I was like 15. My mom and I would come out to Nashville, and I was just making frequent trips and writing and whatever. And we would drive all the way out to Leapers Fork. It's like in the middle of nowhere. And just it's like small town, but that Puckett on open mic night used to be just absolutely packed. And so everyone would sign their names up on the list, and you'd wait for your turn. And I would sometimes try out some original songs, but I also just covered all these like super classic country songs. And it was honestly just a blast. So and two, it let me get on a stage,
Yeah.
every week consistently. And ended up being friends. I started to kind of get to know all the people that were there every week and the people that worked there. And so it was kind of friendly faces and then some new faces that I got to just start feeling more comfortable on stage. And so that was really huge, coming to Nashville and kind of having that outlet every week that wasn't right in the heart of Nashville, with
Yeah.
people all the time. I mean, it was so special just to be able to get out of town and do that with people who were so kind.
So in February of 2014, you played the Bluebird Cafe, I believe,
Yes,
as part of an
yes,
ASCAP event. Now,
yes,
what did they mean for that early journey and allowing you to have some pretty big opportunities before you were even in
yes.
Nashville?
Okay, so what happened when I was 15, someone can fact check me on that. I think I think my first trip into the ASCAP office was when I was 15. And Leanne Phelan that was working at ASCAP then, she is magical and just became really pivotal in my life. And she is the face that I met at ASCAP when I went in there. And our relationship ended up surpassing ASCAP, and she became a manager for me when I was about 16,
Okay.
when she left ASCAP. And so she really, in that position at ASCAP, just made so many things happen for me that just wouldn't have happened without meeting her. And so, she was one of those people along the way that really, which we all need, somebody to look at you and go, I see it. I see what you're doing. And again, before it was probably very good, those people early on who are like, no, I see something in there that really is special, and I want to give you this opportunity. I think it was either that round or one of the performances before. It might have been at the basement. I did an ASCAP thing at the basement, and Leanne had set me up for it and had never seen me play before.
Oh, really?
And yes. And I remember her being at that show, and afterwards she's like, oh my God, you did so great. Like she was like, I didn't even think about like setting you up for it. And then, but she'd never actually seen me before. And so it was like, oh, thank goodness it worked out, but she just saw something in me, and without even thinking was like, I want you to do this, this, and this, without even a ton of experience or vetting me and all that. And so, it was hugely pivotal.
And so in 2015, you released your debut single, He Loves Me, and that turned into your self-titled EP because of how well it was doing. The video was on CMT and doing well, so you decided to release more music. Now, when you look back on that music now, what is sort of your memory of it and your feeling of it now that you've kind of gone on to release much more music since then?
Yes. What I remember from that time, like I'm still proud of the people that I worked with at the time and how that all came about. And I remember being proud when we put that out. It's funny now because I look back and I go, oh my God, like my vocal, like I just like cringe at like certain things. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like there's just things that I hate listening to my vocal on because I feel like I've just grown exponentially since then.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a snapshot of where I was at then. And weirdly enough, I look at streaming numbers now of He Loves Me. And I'm like, I didn't even realize how many people, have heard that song by now. It's crazy. So it feels like forever ago, and it feels like a different version of my artistry. I mean, I feel like a different artist now than I was then. So in some ways it's like, oh my gosh, that's like not even me anymore. But I do think that it shows this journey. And I think that I'm proud of it for where I was at the time. And I'm proud of the growth.
Yeah. And I ask a lot of artists this because this day and age, with TikTok, with social media, with the American Idol and competitions, it feels like there's a lot of people who are trying to do this overnight and wanting to get this career overnight. And I ask a lot of artists, like, is that a smart thing? Yes, it's cool to say I'm a country artist, but is this journey a big part to being a country musician, because it's important to find yourself, because it's important to have those projects that aren't you now, but it helped build you to where you are today?
Yes. That is, first of all, it's a great question. And also it's a million times yes, because I think that the only downside to, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to win American Idol. That didn't happen for me. If I had been in a position where back when He Loves Me was coming out, if I had been in an overnight or quick success situation back when those songs were coming out, I don't know that I would have been able to really capitalize on that at the time.
Yeah.
Because I think you only get so many of those big moments. And I think the problem can be for people is that if that moment comes and it's a massive moment that you have to really hit, if you don't know who you are musically and you haven't been, in the writing room enough, in the studio enough to be able to speak up and say, no, this is really who I am, I'm not going in that direction. It kind of, I think, can be really tough to figure out who you are that quickly, and be able to represent that. And it's just that it's a journey that everyone takes. And I just think that sometimes if things happen really quickly, you just don't have the time to like figure that out.
Yeah.
And so people kind of end up having to like scramble to figure that out quickly. And so in some ways I am really grateful for, all of the hits and misses that I've had that have let me finally get to where I am now without like, too many singles of, not being me. I mean, obviously there's a lot of music out there now. But I was never pressured to put things out that didn't feel like me, or I was never in a position where I, was at a record label wanting me to do something that wasn't me. And so as much as, I had a record deal offer when I was 18 that didn't end up happening. And that was another situation where I felt like, oh my gosh, there's a record label offering me a contract. It's on the table. It's on paper. It's, wasn't signed yet, but I'm going, they offered it to me. It's official.
Right. Yeah.
And I've made it, and this is what I dream of. And I've made it. And that was when I was 18 years old, and it didn't end up happening. And it's like, at the time that was so devastating, but really when I look back, I'm like, I don't think that I was fully me yet. And if I had signed that deal then, it's possible that I would have ended up in a contractual situation with a label releasing music that wasn't really what I wanted. And so I think, going back to your question, is the time to figure out really who you are and sonically what you want to sound like. That time is precious, even though we all like hate it and are like want something to happen quicker, and we all like hate the waiting. Yeah. I just think if you're really being productive in your waiting period, it can end up being the most crucial time.
Right. And so the song that really hit well for you over the last couple of years is Long Way. That was September of 2020. Now you talk about being ready when that success comes. It feels like you set yourself up perfectly because from 2019 to now, you have released 11 singles, I believe, which is quite a bit of music. Like you've been turning it over quite quickly. And so September 2019, Up All Night was your first single since your debut EP. It had been 4 years since you had released original music. And then you had Thick Skin and Happy Hour before you had Long Way that kind of exploded. And so, was that the perfect time for you to have a song that really launched you and got eyeballs on you? Were you ready for that at that moment?
Yes, in some ways I was very ready for that moment. I was not expecting that to happen. So the long way thing really took me by surprise in general. Like I was not expecting that to happen when I posted that song. I was not thinking like, oh, this is the song that it's going to be it. I mean, I'd had that song in my pocket. My team kind of knew that song. I mean, everybody around me had known that song for a while.
Oh, okay.
And I had no expectation of that happening. But I do think that when it did happen, I was ready. I had so many songs and so much that hadn't been released and so much that was just kind of on my heart and in my pocket and sitting, on demos on my phone and lyrics on my computer. And like, there was just so much there that I was really ready when that happened. And new fans came on and new people found me and followed me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have so much more to share with you now. So that I do think in a lot of ways, because there was that 4-year gap of not putting anything out, like that really helped, because by the time Long Way was there, it was like, I have so many songs that I want to release. And so I really did try to stay on top of a release schedule and like give
Right.
the last thing I wanted was for fans and followers to come on board and really be like, Sarahbeth Tate, we love Long Way, but we want to see what more you have and follow me. And then for there not to be more there, like to not feed that interest, I thought would be a mistake. And so I wanted to just always make sure that if you are somebody new that followed me, if you took any interest in me at all enough to click a follow button on any platform, I wanted to make sure that there was something new coming for you to, listen to and maybe get on board with.
Right. And so as that is blowing up and as you're seeing your numbers rise, tell me about American Idol and sort of the thought of trying out for that and going on that. What was sort of your mindset at that point?
Yeah. It was interesting. It was a big decision for me. I had never done the TV show thing, obviously. And it wasn't necessarily a format that I thought was like my thing. Like I had been doing the more traditional Nashville route for so long. And obviously as a songwriter too, I know a lot of times on the shows, you don't get the opportunity to show yourself as an artist, as a singer-songwriter and an artist. And that way I always kind of felt like, I don't know if that would be a good fit for me.
Right. Yeah.
And on top of that, I never vocally, I'm not like a Carrie Underwood belting vocal. And so, which is another thing I've kind of grown into and realized, to stick to my wheelhouse and what I do. And so I just kind of I never was like dying to try out for American Idol. And what happened is actually Leanne Phelan from ASCAP does some work consulting for them. And she had reached out to me just saying, I think that this year, like, obviously all of the shows and Idol included has gone through different phases of their lives too, and how they run things and how it is. And she was like, I just think that this year would be it's a good fit for you. I think that you should do it. And so I thought long and hard about whether or not I wanted to do it. But at the end of the day, and I ended up singing an original song for my audition that wasn't aired, but I at the end of the day, when I was going into that audition, I had no idea if I was going to get through that initial audition. But I thought, okay, if this does air, even if it's a no, even if they show my audition and I get sent home, I thought, well, if I sing an original song for this, like any opportunity that's going to show a song of mine that I wrote and poured my heart into, if that's going to be seen by millions of people in any sense, then it'll be a win, because all I'm doing is getting on to share my heart and share my song. So
Right. Yeah.
that's really kind of what led me to do it, was just thinking more about the listeners and the people at home watching the show. There's not really a parallel in the industry where you get to directly be in the living room of that many listeners at one time.
Yeah.
And that was something different that I hadn't had the opportunity to have before. We go through a lot of gatekeepers and a lot of steps in Nashville that it kind of felt like, okay, like screw all the steps for a second. I just want to sing to, fans and listeners and people who are watching in their living room. So that kind of really is what motivated me on there.
And so the experience in general, once it happened, I mean, unfortunately, your audition wasn't shown. And then I saw a picture of you talking about the difficulty of the competition, and you were like
Yeah.
in the hallway just like bawling. And so
Yes.
talk about the experience after it happened, and were you happy with it, I guess, or was it a very challenging process?
It was more challenging than I expected in different ways. I knew it was going to be, hard, obviously, even just schedule wise, but also just the competition factor. That's another thing that I'm not really used to in Nashville. There's some level of competition in the music industry in general, but we don't really focus on that in town when you're just doing, we're all supportive and it doesn't really feel like a competition.
Yeah.
So that I knew that there would be some hard things about that, but Hollywood Week was so grueling. I was not prepared. I was really not prepared. I know that they talk about it being like boot camp.
Right.
But I was just, I was not, like my mind and my body were not ready for like the exhaustion and, skipping meals and, just that it was just a lot. And to the pressure, I mean, you're singing in front of Katy Perry and Luke Bryan and Lionel Richie. It's like, talk about, and that it's being filmed for millions of people.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like, it's not just like getting up singing for a bunch of country music fans that are like having a blast. I mean, that's fun,
Yeah.
and this felt like, it wasn't as fun like getting on stage. I mean, it was like we were all so nervous. People are like ready to puke side stage.
Oh, wow.
And so that whole setting was just so different for me that I was just like, I was out of my element, which is fine because I think it's really good. All this to say, I think it was a great experience because anything that gets you out of your comfort zone like that is a good thing. Like, I'm very glad that I did it because it's something that I hadn't done before. I mean, like you never want to look back and go, well, what if I had done this TV show and won and got, I mean, you always wonder. So I was really glad to have done it, but I was like, I'm not in Nashville anymore. Like we were in boot camp and I'm like, what is happening? I mean, it was like that picture was at like 4 a.m. and we had like skipped dinner. I hadn't eaten in like hours and hours and hours and hours. And then we'd already been there for 3 nights. So every night you're only getting like, even the nights that weren't all nighters, we were only getting like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. So it's like, it all kind of piles up and you're already like, it's already catching up to you. And then there's like this all nighter before duet round. And I was to the point where like, I already was like unwell before this.
Right.
And then they sprung that on me and I was just like, oh my God. So it was a lot. Kaylin Robertson was my duet partner and she was an absolute angel. She was like on the struggle bus too, but I really like melted down that night. So anyways, I'm grateful for all the friends that I met. All the other contestants were just so sweet and kind and amazing. The contestants, like, nobody makes it feel like a competition at
Right.
all. So that part was really fun.
That's awesome. And so coming off that experience, I believe we have an EP coming in June, right?
Yes. Brand new
Okay.
EP.
So you've released a lot of music, like we've talked about over the past couple of years. So are you packaging songs that have been released, or is this going to be a mix of songs we've heard and some songs we haven't?
So latest two singles are part of the EP. So Boy and Cowboy that I just put out April 15th, and Mother's Daughter that I did kind of for Mother's Day this year, just a few weeks ago. They are both on the EP.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that by the time EP release day comes, there is actual new music. I know we all have to do this a certain way, industry wise, but I always, I know as a fan and a listener, I know how it feels to look forward to a record coming out. And then like every single song on the record you've already heard.
Yeah.
Like there's like one new song on the record. So it was really important to me. So there's 3 new songs coming and then 2 that you've already, so I wanted to make sure that there was like at least a solid chunk of brand new stuff that has never been released before, so that there's still some hype for June. So so I'm very excited. And in some ways it feels like, I know we talked about, I had the self-titled EP long ago,
Yeah.
but it really feels like this in some ways feels like my first EP. It's obviously been a long time. And I think I put on my announcement too, it's like the first like studio recorded. I mean, we went in this time around is the first time that I've gone in and done this many songs with a live, like players, everyone there in real time, creating these songs, having them come to life all together. And that whole experience, like, really is the first time that I've recorded this way and had this full project of music come out this way. So I'm very excited.
That is awesome. And one last thing I'll ask you before I let you go. So I saw your mom post a comment on one of your posts and just talking about how proud she was. And she talked about your resilience when the rug is pulled out from under you, and that the wind has rarely been at your back. It's been a push ever since you arrived in Nashville. So when you think back to comments like those and the last 10 years of this career and where you started and where you've come to, what is your thought on this whole journey?
Oh man, that's such a good question. And yeah, I mean, she is right about that. There's been few times that I felt like about giving up, really. I mean, it always has felt, there's always been, like I said, a little victory of some kind in everything that's made me feel like I need to keep going and I'm meant to be here. And so really overall, there's been so many ups and downs and like some disappointing things. Like I talked about, like record deals that didn't work out, publishing deals that didn't work out. I got sent home on American Idol, all these things that seem like disappointments. And maybe were at the time, it's like, there's just always this little bit of victory and hope that just makes me feel like I can do this and I can keep going. And I think that there's just a little place in country music for me. I mean, I'm a fan of everybody putting out music in this genre right now. And I'm a fan of all of the classic country artists who got us all here. And I just think that there's, maybe just a little niche for me that I can fill and that maybe fans want to hear. And lately I just focus on that and putting music out that people want to listen to, and maybe that hasn't been heard before. And yeah, and I'm just honestly really enjoying this whole ride and where I'm at. And someday I hope we strike it really, really big, and we'll be looking back on days like this. And but until then, I'm just so content, like, and excited putting out every song I get to put out and that somebody connects with, it's like, that's all just a win in and of itself.
Thank you once again so much for listening, and thank you to Sarahbeth for stopping by and sharing her story. Be sure to check out her new EP, For My Own Good, when it is released in June. Please also be sure to check out our website, countrymusicmademe.com. There you can listen to all of our episodes and also sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive content like an acoustic performance from Sarahbeth Taite. Just head over to countrymusicmademe.com and hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on any streaming platform, of course. So if streaming is your thing, just head over to your favorite, search Country Music Made Me, and give us a follow there as well. Thank you once again so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.